welcome back to the Royal Roundup. As you may well know, it's been a very busy few weeks for the royal family, and of course, the late Queen Elizabeth did pass. So if you do have any tributes that you would like to give to the late Queen Elizabeth, then do pop them in the comment section, and then we can bring them up onto screen, as I know people around the world are keen still to pay tribute to her if you weren't in the UK. And I know we get lots of American viewers joining us, so do let us know. And of course, if you have any well wishes for our new king, King Charles, then do also let us know in the comments. Well, we are joined today by GB News's royal reporter Cameron Walker. Welcome on board, Cam.
Hello, Pandora.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. It has been probably one of the busiest periods of my life, but
Yeah.
you know, we move.
We do indeed. And nothing like we've ever seen before in our history, right?
No, it's something which we obviously all expected, but I think when it actually happened, it still took a lot of people by surprise because it was just 2 days previously that she was appointing her new prime minister. And then who knew 48 hours later the outcome?
I mean, she was quite literally working up until the very end, and that was what she was doing throughout her 70 years of service, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she looked frail in those photographs, perhaps, but she was certainly smiling. She was animated and was clearly very much engaged in the political agenda of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, a place where, of course, she had reigned for 70 years. But perhaps, you know, just things caught up with her, and it seems quite sudden, I think, from my perspective. I don't think many people were expecting it because the day previously, the then Prince Charles was actually undertaking an engagement to do with allergies at Dumfries House on the other side of Scotland.
Right.
So clearly, even the heir to the throne wasn't expecting what happened the day after.
No, but am I right in thinking that Princess Anne was there at Balmoral with the Queen for a couple of weeks leading up to that sad passing?
Yeah, so we understand she was always expected to be at Balmoral, Princess Anne. She was just spending time with the Queen. She also had a couple of engagements that she was doing in Scotland around the same time. But I think when the Queen's health looked like it was taking a turn for the worse, she decided to stay with Her Majesty. And then, of course, Prince Charles, well, the then Prince Charles and Camilla were in Scotland, so it was relatively easy and quick for them to go to Balmoral, unlike the other members of the royal family who had to travel up on a private jet from the southeast of England from RAF Northolt. So more of a challenge for them.
And unfortunately, not all the family arrived together. Am I right in thinking, Cam?
No, so we were first briefed that Prince Harry and the Duchess of Sussex would be travelling up to Scotland with the rest of the members of the royal family, not necessarily on the same plane, but certainly at the same time. And then there was almost like a counter briefing where we found out that only Prince Harry was going to be travelling up to Balmoral with Prince William and the Earl and Countess of Wessex and Prince Andrew as well. And there was lots of questions as to why that was. And from reports, it points to the fact that the now King Charles thought it was inappropriate, perhaps, for the Duchess of Sussex to be there, which caused an argument and therefore a delay in planes taking off.
Now, we'll be talking about family relations as the Royal Roundup goes on today, because, of course, there's always been speculation, especially within the past couple of years, more so now that we've seen the Sussexes step down as senior royals. But this has also obviously come into light with everything that's happened over the course of the national mourning. And now, of course, they are back across the pond. So we'll be talking about that a bit later. But that just kind of gives an indicator as to how everyone is very much busy doing their own thing within the royal family, and even more so now they've got a new king. But just reflections from your point within these past couple of weeks, Cam, were there any standout moments to you which you will remember from a journalist perspective that perhaps a member of the public, or perhaps someone who follows the royal family who'll be watching the Royal Roundup today, would like to hear?
Gosh, there were so many, I think. One of the big emotive standout moments for me was not necessarily the Queen lying in state, but it was the reaction of the crowds who have queued for hours and hours to
Mm.
see the Queen lie in state when they finally got into that room in Westminster Hall and saw the spectacular sight of Her Majesty's coffin with the crown jewels and all the rest of it. And the different emotions, people literally burst into tears, some bowed, some curtsies, but it was really emotional seeing the diverse groups of people who
Mm.
had seen, who went to see Her Majesty, kind of really old people, really young people, veterans, kind of the whole breadth of United Kingdom, which was really quite something. And I think also what perhaps would have made King Charles and Queen Camilla slightly nervous was the reaction of to them as the
Mm.
new king and queen, because there was a moment when they'd flown back to London and they were driving from RAF Northolt back to Buckingham Palace. And that first walkabout they did, I don't know if you remember, Pandora,
Yeah, no,
but
I
the
remember it well.
crowds, yeah, the crowds were cheering and were genuinely pleased to see the new king and queen. They were kissing the king on the cheeks and you know,
Mm.
and shaking his hands and all sorts. And you know, the history of the 20, 30 years previous with the fallout from Princess Diana, etc., etc., all of that would perhaps have been going through King Charles's mind. And
Oh,
what a
yes.
relief that the crowds and the British public support him as King Charles III.
Yeah, and as you said, the public opinion has most definitely changed. A new era, and a completely different time to when the Queen stepped up for her service. 70 years has passed, and so has society, and so have people's opinions about the royal family. So yes, he faces huge new challenges. Public opinion being one of them. What else do you think he will face in terms of the challenges that he'll see in the next coming years, Cam?
Well, it's long been known that King Charles intends to slim down the monarchy quite substantially. And I think one of the immediate tasks for him in that regard, which wasn't necessarily something that I was thinking about until we started hearing rumours of it, is what's going to happen to the 100 plus staff who worked at his former residence, Clarence House.
Mm,
What's going to
yeah.
happen to the 20 or so personal staff of Her Majesty the Queen? We understand, according to reports, that there are job consultations going on with those staff as to what's going to happen to them, because all of
Mm,
those staff equally are paid for by British taxpayers.
mm,
They're paid out of a sovereign grant. So it's not necessarily a choice for him of wanting those staff to continue because it would be nice if they have a job. He also needs to think about the value of the British monarchy going forward in the 21st century. I also believe that it was less than a year ago, Pandora, that the then Prince Charles made that speech at the COP26 climate summit in Glasgow, where he said the world needs to be on the warlike footing for climate change. That's something I perhaps he can't really say speeches like that as king. It would almost, I think, be seen as too political. And I think King Charles understands that. I think we'll see him very much tone down the kind of climate change speeches that we have grown so used to in the last decade or so.
mm.
I think he'll very much be an impartial monarch, but that's a big challenge for him, putting his personal agenda below his duties as sovereign.
Hugely so, and as you said, even from doing the walkabout, he does seem to have a far more perhaps personal touch with the public than we saw of our late queen. Now that might be due to the fact of different generations, but also he's grown up with the public, and he hasn't been uh, so um, so close to them over the years, but they feel like they've known him in a completely different manner. Therefore, do you think he'll try and push the political agenda a little bit more than what the Queen did, or as you said there, he needs to be careful?
I think the monarchy survives because it isn't political, and I think
Mm,
King Charles is very much aware of that. And like you said, he is very much at ease with the public. You see him on walkabouts, he's chatting to people, he's making jokes with people. The people clearly love him in return. And yes, his mother, the late Queen, did that. But like you said, they're from two separate generations. The Queen didn't even go to school. She was homeschooled, whereas King
Mm.
Charles went to Gordonston and went into the Royal Navy. So he's had a lot more experience with real people. And I think that in this more kind of modern monarchy, which he's clearly pursuing, is something that we will see him continue to do. I think he very much wants to reach out to real people and therefore be more relevant to ordinary Brits up and down the country.
Now, we did touch on this before about public opinion on him changing. And of course, you know, it doesn't take a quick Google search to see all the history that surrounds Charles's relationship with now Queen Consort, his wife. Um, how do you think they are going to work on that public appearance, coming across like a team, being united when they face such a huge challenge of the history that they've had together?
I think they'll do what they have done since their wedding in 2005 and continue with their charity work,
Mm.
continue meeting and greeting the public, trying to stay out of any scandals if they can help it, and just doing their duty as best as they can, and not getting
Mm.
too overly involved with politics or getting too overly emotional in public. I think there has definitely been a change from, I mean, clearly I wasn't doing this job in 2005, but from speaking to people who do remember, King
Mm.
Charles seems a lot more happy now that he's got Camilla by his side. And I think we saw a reflection of that in the first speech he did as king the day after Her Majesty the Queen died. He said he will find strength with his queen consort Camilla by his side, supporting him. And we saw that on the first walkabout, as we mentioned earlier. It was very much King Charles's time to greet the public, and Camilla knew when to step back because she is only consort. But when they both turned towards Buckingham Palace and walked through the gates, they walked in there together. And I think that image of them first walking into Buckingham Palace as king and queen was very carefully planned. And I think it shows that they are very much one husband and wife team leading the monarchy. And they are going to be crowned together at the coronation when that happens at some point next year.
And on to the coronation. Can you guess when it will be? I mean, I've had questions about this too, but I mean, can you give any kind of indication to people who are wondering, well, what next?
Yeah, so there's nothing official, I'm afraid. I would love it, and this is possible, that it happens on the 70th anniversary of the Queen's coronation, which was the 2nd of June
Mm.
1953. So it wouldn't surprise me if Buckingham Palace are having the same thought that I am and do it on the 2nd of June 2023. If not, I do think it will be in the springtime, so kind of April, May, June, around that time. It takes a while to plan. I don't think it will be 16 months between a session and coronation like it was for Elizabeth II. But yeah, a good few months away yet.
And of course, they'll be well aware about how much all these things are costing the public taxpayer. And I think with the funeral, obviously, you know, the passing of the late Queen, uh, people have very much accepted that yes, that's very, very fitting for her to have a really, you know, a really fitting, moving, personal moment of national mourning up until the funeral. And it was so fitting how she came from Scotland back to London and then on to Windsor. But of course, the coronation is going to cost lots of money as well, Cam. Do you think Charles will be aware of this in a cost of living crisis?
I think he certainly will be, and the guidance and rumours we're hearing is he very much wants it to be a much shorter service and be with less expensive things associated
Mm.
with it, because Her Majesty the Queen's was very expensive at the time. But it was also a similar time because it was very soon after World War II, which clearly got the country in a lot of debt, similar to we have just come out of a pandemic and the country is in a lot of debt. But I did think the difference between then and now is that the cost of living crisis and the way the public would react to that is very different. So I think if there was a big, lavish coronation ceremony which went on for hours, it would be very much frowned upon. And the royal household, I think, is aware of this. So it will include the clearly traditional and legal responsibilities that a coronation needs to have. So the crowning, the anointing with the holy oil, etc. I think that will all stay, but some of it I wouldn't be surprised if we lost to save the British taxpayer money.
And we do know, obviously, that the late Queen had huge faith. And is that the same for King Charles? Does he turn to his faith too?
Yes, and he is defender of the faith, as he swore an oath to at his accession just a couple of weeks ago. He is Supreme Governor of the Church of England. He swore another oath to protect the Church of Scotland, and he's already been to probably 5 large church services to honour his mother, including the funeral and including one in each country within the United Kingdom. And we believe he went to Crathy Kirk, the little parish church next to Balmoral, on Sunday as well. So I think faith is something he'll hold dear and continue to do so.
He's also spoken, hasn't he, about other faiths as well, being very open and obviously being very reflective of the society that we now live in, across tens of different faiths that we have, very, very multicultural, which is obviously perhaps slightly different to what we had 70 years ago, even though we did obviously have other faiths then too, it goes without saying. But it has got more and more diverse as the time's gone on. And as you said, society has changed. But looking forward to the challenges he faces personally, it goes without saying the royal family have had a few bad headlines over the last couple of years, some of which are debated and some which aren't and are very much in the public eye, and they've had to accept. Now, this is a new era. This is a new beginning. This is chance for him to, try and get back some of that trust, perhaps, that has been questioned slightly. What challenges does he face personally?
Personally, I mean, that's a very good question. I think his biggest challenge is being accepted as the new king. But because we've just come out of royal mourning, he hasn't had a lot of time to do that. So I think over the next couple of months, we're going to have to see him very much take an active role in British life and promoting causes which are going to benefit people. But he's also head of the Commonwealth, and many Commonwealth realms, the 15 or so which he is, continues to be head of state outside of the United Kingdom, including many of the Caribbean realms, have expressed opinions or at least intentions to get rid, essentially, of the British monarchy from their constitution and become republics. So if he wants to maintain the monarchy and retain him being head of state in various other countries, it wouldn't surprise me if we see him go on royal tours to try and shore up support for the monarchy abroad. But he has said in the past, when he was Prince of Wales, that he very much, it's up to the individual country to form their own path. He's not going to stop them from becoming a republic if they wish to do so, but that equally doesn't stop him from trying to persuade them otherwise.
No, and of course, this is something perhaps that the late Queen would have had spoken with him about. No, she would have briefed them and given him lots of training for this role, and perhaps some of the challenges that he would face, I'm guessing.
Yeah, Her Majesty the Queen was so good at soft diplomacy, i.e., getting lots of different countries into a room and talking and being friendly with one another as head of state. And she was very good at forging relationships on behalf of the United Kingdom for the benefit of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office here in the UK. And King Charles even is very much probably going to continue doing the same thing. We saw a hint of that in the week, in the eve of Her Majesty the Queen's funeral. He hosted a big diplomatic reception for foreign heads of state in Buckingham Palace, which again will be lots of heads of state in one room, the most in one room on British soil, at least, in a very long time. So I think that starts to show you the kind of trends that King Charles wants to go on in terms of soft diplomacy and living and keeping on the legacy of his mother.
Yeah, indeed. And on that point of meetings with heads of state, we did see one, didn't we? And it was one of many, but one of them was uh, almost a drinks reception, I think, at Buckingham Palace with the now new Prince and Princess of Wales there, Sophie Wessex, and other members, senior members of the royal family. But notably, some members were missing. Now, for people who are confused about this, Cam, please do tell, because it's actually not as harsh as it may sound. It is to do with the fact that people have stepped back as senior royals, right?
Yeah, so I'm assuming you're referring to Prince Harry and Meghan and maybe Prince Andrew as well.
Yes, yes,
Yes,
indeed, I
yes,
am.
right, yes. So, those three are no longer working members of the royal family for various reasons, and perhaps the British government and royal courtiers felt it would be inappropriate for non-working members of the royal family to attend an engagement such as this, because, like I said, the royal family is very much praised for its soft diplomacy. And also, perhaps there is a danger with them not being working members of the royal family. They are not bound by the same rules. And I'll give you an example. When there was that big debate on kind of abortion laws in one of the states, and one of the states in the United States, I can't remember which one, but the Duchess of Sussex voiced quite a political opinion, which wouldn't have gone down very well if she was still a working member of the royal family. Prince Harry, of course, has also become quite political at various times in the US on various issues, including I think there was a point where he was talking about, he was very much supporting his wife Meghan in that stance. So that's perhaps why they decided not to invite them, or indeed uninvite them, as some of the papers have speculated. There's no confirmation on that, but at the end of the day, they're not working members of the royal family.
Okay. And then that would lead me on to the next question, which we sort of dread as royal commentators coming up. What's next for Harry and Meghan? What surprises have they got round the corner?
Well, we've got this royal book that's expected from Prince Harry, his personal memoir, meant to be very much revealing a few details. We were never given an exact release date for this book. All we were told was it's going to be at some point before the end of the year. We're getting close towards the end of the year now, aren't we? And
we are. It is definitely getting colder.
Yeah, and there were reports earlier this week that Prince Harry was desperately trying to make changes to parts of his book following Her Majesty the Queen's funeral, and seeing the reaction of the British people to King Charles as king. The problem for Prince Harry is that he's already been paid £17.5 million of a £35 million contract for this book. The publishers may well want this book to be on the bookshelves for American Thanksgiving and Christmas, and therefore they might already be at the printers. So it could be too late for Prince Harry to remove, if indeed he wants to remove anything, what he wants to remove, which is going to be a bit of an issue, is, as is expected, he may have attacked Prince Charles, what was Prince Charles when he wrote the book, Duchess Camilla, and indeed the institution of monarchy, because if the Oprah Winfrey interviews and things go by, it's going to be quite a sticky situation. And if his book is as critical as that Oprah interview was perceived to be, I think they will really struggle to have any kind of olive branches with the royal family.
But we did see the Fab Four, as they were once known, reunited, didn't we? The new Prince and Princess of Wales, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Obviously, that's not them and their first reunited picture, but that is them, obviously, at one of the services, I think, over the national mourning period. But we did see them reunited, and I think there was lots of speculation about that meet before the funeral. Will they be reunited? When will they be reunited? Where will they be sat? You know, all the questions which are coming up in people's minds.
Yes.
Do you think, do you think that therefore he'll also be retracting perhaps comments which have been made in the book about speculation about Meghan and Kate's relationship, or about his relationship with his brother, which has been called into question recently, hasn't it?
It certainly has done, and he's made an active point to avoid direct questions about his relationship with his brother. He did an interview with the US network during the Invictus Games this year, and he was directly asked about whether he missed his dad Charles and brother William, which he kind of avoided the question and refused to answer. But we did see them do a walkabout together, as you mentioned, Pandora, Prince William, Catherine, Meghan, and Harry. That was Prince William's idea. That was at Prince William's invitation. And I understand that was because Prince William wanted to create a show of unity at the time of such unimaginable grief for the family. And then we, of course, were like, oh, well, maybe this is the start of an olive branch and the start of kind of really mending the relationship between the two couples. But we know that Harry and Meghan are now back in the United States, and there's not been any other hints really, apart from appearing at the various services for Her Majesty the Queen, that they are even close to reconciling their differences.
And do you think King Charles will be well aware of this?
I think he'll be aware of it, but I also don't think it's his top priority, as it is not the top priority for William and Catherine. William and Catherine are currently in Wales as we speak, trying to really show to the Welsh people that they mean to help the people of Wales as their new prince and princess by attending meeting various people, meeting various charities, highlighting the challenges for Welsh people, highlighting the opportunities for them. So that's very much their priority at the moment as the new Prince and Princess of Wales. And King Charles needs to get on with being king. So trying to mend a relationship which, let's face it, ended probably a couple of years ago, is not going to be a priority.
As you said, back to business for them. We did see lots of other members of the royal family, though, throughout the national mourning period, didn't we? We saw Prince Andrew, which I think surprised a few people. But then we have to remember, his relationship with various members of the royal family. He is brother to the now king. So therefore he is obviously going to be there, isn't he? And he is the son as well. He is a grieving son. But other than that, moving forward, what will we see of Prince Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, Prince Andrew, a lot of people actually that I've been speaking to felt a bit sorry for him during the funeral. If you remember, he was visibly very emotional walking behind his mother's coffin. And let's remember that this is a family who are having to grieve the loss of the head of their family very publicly. And Prince Andrew was very much a part of that. He's no longer a working member of the royal family, but he still has brothers, he still has sisters, he still has, a sister, he still has nieces and nephews, and he was there to support his family. He wore his uniform during the vigil of the princes in Westminster Hall, standing by his mother's coffin. We understand that he has, I know because it's been confirmed to me, that he has taken back Mick and Sandy, the two corgis, which he gifted to Her Majesty the Queen following the death of Prince Philip in 2021. So he's readopted them following his mother's death. So he'll be looking after his the two corgis with his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson in the Windsor Great Park in the house they lived there. I don't think we'll see a triumphant return to him as a working member of the royal family. I think that would really be frowned upon by a few people, giving the settling out of court in that civil sexual assault case against him, which he completely denies. I think he'll very much live a private life out of the spotlight, or at least that will be the hope of senior courtiers.
And we did see Fergie, didn't we, at the funeral? And she, despite getting divorced, she still stayed very close to the late Queen.
Yes, I believe so. And like you said, we saw her at the funeral with her daughters there to support her daughters. Mm-hmm. Sarah Ferguson has quite an active Twitter account and Instagram account, and she still continues to do charity work, but just not as a working member of the royal family. I think for Prince Andrew, that's going to be more challenging for him. But yes, you're right, that she's very much still kind of in the public eye, but not quite as much in the public eye as she was 20, 30 years ago.
No, but she is still close with her ex-husband, isn't she?
Yes, we understand they still live together in the house, which name escapes me, in Windsor Great Park, where they live. It's part of the Windsor estate. It's crown property, as it were, now owned by King Charles, and they rent it together, we believe, from then Her Majesty the Queen, but now presumably King Charles, and there's nothing to suggest that's going to change.
Interesting. Okay, so we've got the Prince and Princess of Wales in Wales, rightly so. Speaking to various charities over there and forming what will be a very long-lasting relationship. And what else can we expect now of King Charles and Queen Consort? Where can we see them next?
King Charles and Queen Consort, we understand they're still at Birk Hall in Scotland, following that period of royal mourning. I think we should expect in the next couple of weeks for them to start doing more engagements across the country. As for the investing his son, Prince William, as the Prince of Wales, there are no plans to do that. We've been told this afternoon that there are no plans to have a big grand investiture for the new Prince of Wales, like we saw for the then Prince Charles in 1969. You might remember in Cardiff Castle, where it was essentially like a mini coronation where he was crowned. And I think that the feeling is, again, with the cost of living crisis, similar to the slimming down of a coronation, they didn't want to do that. So I think that's very much their priorities and thinking. They really need to be aware of the public mood with the cost of living and the struggles felt by ordinary families across the country.
Okay, all right then. Well, lots of work to be done. We're sure he'll be very, very busy up till Christmas, and then obviously it all changes this year with that tradition that I know I do. When you listen to the Queen's speech, it will now be the King's speech. So listen, Cam, we'll try and get you back again next week. But thank you so much for coming on and giving your insights to what has been, as you said, a crazy, emotional, poignant a couple of weeks we've had. Not only us, but everyone who's watching as well. It's been quite something, and something I think everyone and every generation will remember. But we will be back next week with the latest Royal Roundup. So thank you very much, Cam, for coming on. And catch you then. And you can catch up with all of our episodes over on our playlist, on our Twitter, on our Instagram. We've got a royal section on the website, so take a look there. So yes, catch up soon and hope you have a lovely week.